I will never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
At first, it sounds like a generous and inspiring thing to hear from your boss, until you realize these uplifting words are coming from the unshakable evil that is Louis Bloom, a young American drifter with big ambitions and no job. Although he barely made a living through some petty theft and small-time schemes, Louis never gave up his dream of getting rich overnight. One day, by chance, Louis accidentally discovered a way to make money. From that moment on, his life changed drastically. It all started with a car accident. One night, while driving home, Louis witnessed a traffic accident. As he stopped to watch, he noticed a bearded man named Joe, who looked like a reporter holding a video camera and filming the accident scene nonstop. When Joe finished filming and was about to leave, Louis approached him and struck up a conversation. He learned that Joe was not a reporter, but a Nightcrawler. A Nightcrawler is someone who roams around at night, filming various accidents and crime scenes. Afterwards, they sell the footage they capture to TV stations as news material. Louis immediately became very interested in this profession and asked to join the Joe's team on the spot. However, Joe flatly refused. But Louis did not give up. He decided to try it on his own. Although he had little relevant experience, Louis quickly researched the Nightcrawler's workflow online. It was actually not complicated. You just needed to first listen in on the local police radio, then rush to the accident or crime scene based on the dispatch information from the police command center to film footage. After roughly understanding the process, Louis traded a stolen high-end bicycle at a secondhand store to get a video camera and a radio device. With these two pieces of equipment, Louis officially joined the ranks of Nightcrawlers. However, as a rookie, he was always half a step slower than others. By the time he puffed and hurried to the scene, other Nightcrawlers had long finished filming and left with their footage. What was worse, Louis lacked experience. Every time he heard about an accident or case on the police radio, he would immediately drive tens of kilometers to the location and shoot haphazardly. The footage he got mostly lacked any significant news value. The meager payments he earned sometimes didn't even cover his fuel expenses. Fortunately, Louis was a quick learner with a sharp mind. In less than a month, he began to grasp some tricks. One night, guided by a tip from the police radio, he arrived at the scene of an armed robbery but was still beaten to it by another Nightcrawler. Louis was unwilling to return empty-handed, so he boldly broke through the police barricade and pointed his camera directly at the victim holding a heavy gun. Although he was soon driven away by the police, this time Louis finally captured some special footage. When leaving the scene, he noticed the other Nightcrawler who had arrived earlier was on the phone negotiating a price with a TV station. Louis was convinced his footage was better than that of the other man. So he went straight to the TV station and found the head of the news department there, Nina, to propose a deal. After watching Louis's footage, Nina immediately agreed to buy it because Louis's close-up shots of the victim were more heartfelt. Nina believed such footage would definitely attract viewers' attention even more. Thus, Louis earned $250 from Nina. More than that, he also received valuable advice from Nina, an experienced media professional. According to her experience, the more graphic and violent the real crime footage is, the more viewers like it, and the higher the price it can fetch. After hearing Nina's words, Louis felt as if waking from a dream. From then on, he focused on capturing more graphic footage of accidents and crime scenes. Before long, his work slowly got on track. It must be said Louis indeed had a talent for the Nightcrawler profession compared to his peers. He was always able to find unique shooting angles that made his video footage stand out. Nina greatly appreciated this ability, and the two established a long-term cooperative relationship. Thanks to this, Louis gained a stable source of income. To improve work efficiency, he hired a drifter named Rick at a low wage to specifically monitor the police radio and watch over the car for him. This way, Louis no longer had to worry about missing other breaking news while filming. With Rick's help, Louis's work became much smoother. One night, a home robbery occurred in the city. The two immediately drove to the scene. However, because the police arrived promptly, there were no casualties in this case, which greatly disappointed Louis. Not wanting to have come for nothing, Louis took advantage of the victim couple being questioned by police outside the house and sneaked in quietly through the back door to see if there were any scenes worth filming. At this time, several family photos stuck on the refrigerator, along with a few bullet holes left by the robbers, caught Louis's attention. He then moved some photos next to the bullet holes and filmed a segment focused on the fridge. Next, he turned the camera toward the outside window where the victim couple was being questioned by police. Coincidentally, there were also 2 bullet holes on the window, and their positions aligned exactly with the heads of the 2 victims. Although this footage contained no bloody scenes, thanks to the excellent shooting angles and the impactful visual storytelling, Lewis still received a generous payment from Nina and high praise from her. In the following days, Lewis thrived in the Nightcrawler industry. Besides going out every night with Rick, he also used his daytime rest time to teach himself editing and filming techniques. In just 3 months, he grew from a rookie into an industry expert, greatly increasing his income. Not only did he upgrade his equipment from basic to professional, using his earnings to buy new filming gear, but he also purchased a new sports car, a beautiful red Dodge Challenger. With superior gear, Louis was always able to arrive at scenes ahead of his competitors and capture first-hand footage. One night not long after, he even arrived at a car accident scene before the police. From the scene, it appeared that the driver had accidentally crashed into a large tree by the roadside, causing the accident. Since the driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt, he was thrown out of the car and died instantly. To get a better shooting angle, Lewis even moved the body without permission when no one was around, disturbing the accident scene. The police who arrived late did not notice his illegal behavior. That night, Lewis brought the footage to Nina. She was very pleased after watching it. Seizing the opportunity, Lewis invited Nina to have dinner with him. Nina originally did not want to have any private interactions with Lewis beyond work, but considering that the footage he provided had become a ratings guarantee for the TV station, and due to Lewis's persistence, she eventually agreed to his invitation. However, at the dinner table, Louis made an excessive request to Nina. He hoped they could maintain an occasional physical relationship, otherwise, he would stop supplying news footage to the TV station where Nina worked. It turned out Louis had recently learned that Nina's labor contract with the TV station was about to expire. If the news program couldn't maintain high ratings, Nina was very likely to lose her job. This was exactly the leverage Lewis needed to demand Nina comply with his terms by threatening to withhold footage. Although Nina was single, she was nearly 30 years older than Lewis. He never expected that Louis would be into this sort of thing. Despite her strong reluctance to keep her job, she was forced to agree to his improper demands. For a while after that, Louis both slept with the woman he desired and gradually made a name for himself in the Nightcrawler circle. Even Joe, who had previously refused to hire him, came knocking on Lewis's door. At this point, Lewis no longer wanted to live off others. Not only did he refuse Joe's invitation, but he also insulted him with a few mocking remarks. Joe lost patience, got into a loud quarrel with Lewis, and stormed off. That night, Louis and his assistant Rick headed to the scene of a tragic incident. On the way, the police radio broadcasted another emergency about a plane crash. Lewis immediately turned the car around to rush to the crash site, but was a step too late. The police had already cleared the scene and he got no footage. Joe, who had arrived earlier, not only shot exclusive video of the plane crash, but also sent a subordinate to capture footage of the incident scene Lewis had abandoned halfway. Seeing Joe smugly boasting about his gains that night, Lewis burned with anger. What made things worse was that when he returned to the TV station and explained the situation to Nina, she harshly scolded him. In his fury, Lewis suddenly came up with an evil idea. He planned to kill Joe to vent his anger. This way, he could eliminate a strong rival and simultaneously create a news story to shoot exclusive footage. The next day, Lewis quietly went near Joe's residence and tampered with his car's underside. That very night, Joe lost control of his vehicle and crashed into a roadside utility pole, sustaining severe injuries. It was likely he would spend the rest of his life bedridden or in a wheelchair. Lewis, who had followed Joe, captured first-hand footage of the crash scene and made a big profit from it. After dealing with Joe, Lewis's work went even more smoothly. One night, a home robbery occurred at a villa in the suburbs. Lewis, who happened to be filming nearby, immediately drove to the villa. After arriving nearby, he told his colleague Rick to find a place to park the car while he ran toward the villa with his camera. Unexpectedly, before Louis could enter the house, he heard 2 gunshots. Lewis had arrived too early. Not only had the police not yet arrived, but the robbers had not yet left. The robbery was still ongoing. After seeing 2 robbers run out of the villa, Lewis hurriedly hid in a nearby bush and managed to film their faces and the car's license plate. Once the robbers drove away, Lewis sneaked into the villa and successfully filmed panoramic shots of the crime scene and the bodies of 3 victims who had been shot. The 3 appeared to be the villa's owners and their maid. After filming, Louis quickly left the villa. However, he didn't rush to submit the footage to Nina. Instead, he edited the video in the car, cutting out the footage of the robbers and saving it on his computer. The footage of the crime scene and the victims was saved on a hard drive and given to Nina. Nina and her colleagues were stunned when they saw the high-definition footage of the brutal crime scene. Such explosive footage would undoubtedly generate a wave of high viewership. The problem was that airing this footage violated journalistic ethics and infringed on the victim's privacy. Colleagues all advised Nina against broadcasting the video. However, to keep her job, Nina still decided to use the footage Lewis had shot. To avoid legal risks, she had the editor blur the victims' faces. During the editing process, Lewis made a bold demand, asking Nina for $100,000 in payment for the video. After some bargaining, they settled on $10,000. But Lewis imposed two conditions. First, Nina must recommend him to the TV station's executives. Second, all future broadcasts of his videos by the station must clearly credit him as the source. After nearly half a year of effort, Louis was no longer satisfied being an anonymous Nightcrawler. He wanted to become a well-known freelance journalist in the industry. To maintain cooperation with Lewis, Nina had no choice but to agree to his demands again. As expected, once the crime scene footage aired, it immediately caused a sensation. Lewis's name appeared on TV screens as he wished. However, the first to notice him was not the audience, but the police. Early the next morning, two officers came to Louis' home to ask if he had captured footage of the robbers the previous night. Louis lied, saying that when he arrived at the scene, the robbers had just driven away. He only vaguely saw there were two robbers, but unfortunately did not clearly see their faces or the license plate. Louis lied to the police because he was planning a more explosive news story. After sending the officers away, he obtained the robbers' license plate from the footage he had shot the night before. Next, he used online crowdsourcing tools to dig up the identity and home address of one of the robbers. That night, Louis and his assistant Rick went to stake out outside the robber's house. Soon, two robbers came out and drove to a nearby restaurant for dinner. Following closely behind, Louis told Rick his plan. He intended to call the police soon and tip them off about the robbers' whereabouts. This way, he could get a $50,000 reward from the police and capture exclusive footage of the police arresting the robbers. This time, Louis involved Rick in filming so they could record the event from two camera angles and demand a higher payment from the TV station. Since this shoot was risky, Louis offered to give Rick a raise. Only then did Rick realize Louis had gotten the robbers' faces on video that night. Thinking fast, he said a raise wasn't enough. He wanted to split the $50,000 police reward evenly. Otherwise, he threatened to report Louis for withholding information. Naturally, Louis was unhappy with Rick's high demands, but at the critical moment, he couldn't do without Rick's help, so he reluctantly agreed to split the reward. After their agreement, Louis immediately called the police. 4 nearby patrol officers quickly arrived and tried to arrest the two robbers. A gunfight broke out during the chaos. One robber was killed on the spot, 2 officers were shot and rendered unable to move, and the other robber escaped by car. An uninjured officer immediately drove a patrol car in pursuit. Louis, who had been filming the police shootout, stopped filming, started his own car, and followed the patrol car with Rick. Sitting in the passenger seat, Rick held the camera and filmed the thrilling car chase. The lead robber, seeing the police closing in, suddenly swerved and crashed into the patrol car. The violent impact caused the robber's vehicle to lose control and roll over. Seeing this, Louis quickly stopped his car, then cautiously approached with the camera to check on the police and robbers' conditions. After observing for a while, he told Rick that the police seemed to have fallen unconscious and that the robber was already dead on the spot. Then Louis instructed Rick to quickly get a close-up shot of the robber's body before the other police arrived. Upon hearing this order, Rick immediately took his camera and approached the robber's vehicle, only to discover that the robber was still barely alive. Before Rick could react, the robber shot and killed him. This entire scene was secretly filmed by Louis, who was hiding in the shadows. In fact, Louis had long known the robber was not dead, so he devised a trap to get rid of Rick, who wanted to split the reward with him. After killing Rick, the robber stumbled out of the vehicle, attempting to escape, but was soon shot dead on the spot by another arriving police officer. In the end, Louis went alone to the TV station with the freshly recorded footage. After watching the material, like a Hollywood blockbuster, Nina praised Louis endlessly. However, just as the news aired, Louis was summoned by the police. Based on clues they had, the police suspected Louis of knowing about the incident but not reporting it, and of orchestrating the whole event, which resulted in serious casualties.
Could you tell me how it is you were at the Chinatown Express tonight and call the 911?
Of course. It began earlier in the day. I was watering my plant.
Louis' attempt at seeming normal with this excuse sort of reminds us of Patrick Bateman's classic excuse, "I have to go return some videotapes." Anyway, since Louis refused to confess and the police had no concrete evidence, they had to release him after detaining him for 48 hours. I was waiting for him get his karma, but he didn't. Painfully realistic ending, I guess. At the story's end, Louis hired 3 new employees, expanding his team. Dressed in a suit and slicked back hair, he confidently spoke about his path to success in front of the new staff, exuding the air of an elite professional, yet no one knew what kind of dark and evil soul was hidden beneath his glamorous exterior. This story is from the crime thriller Nightcrawler, which was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. The film was released in 2014, but even now, it offers deep reflections. In today's era of booming social media, those content creators who deliberately stir up various social conflicts and spread false values just for views, aren't they, like the protagonists in this story, also committing evil?